Good evening. The top stories on your Sunday News Update. The partial closure of Lionwall Road will only take effect on Mondays, Saturdays and Sundays initially. Year 10s will return to school on the 26th of May and Year 12s before the summer break. And Pedro Sanchez says he'll seek a fifth and last month-long extension to the COVID state of emergency. Well, the partial closure of Lionwall Road will only take effect on Mondays, Saturdays and Sundays initially as from the 1st of June. This was revealed by the Minister for Transport during today's press conference. Vijay Daryanani said he met with the Transport Advisory Committee last week and had received over 400 inquiries in 48 hours in respect of the government's plans to partially close Lionwall Road from Orange Bastion to Duke of Kent House. However, in answer to GBC questions, Vijay Daryanani denied the government had rowed back on plans originally announced, saying the partial closure was still going ahead, but only 3 days a week to allow for live consultation.
The government has not changed its position on closing Lionwall Road. The government will be closing Lionwall Road on the 1st of June. What we can't be accused of is one moment of rushing into something and then we're accused of changing our position because we want to keep on consulting people. And the idea is that we need to consult people more. Now, if it means that I have to change any plans at midnight on Sunday, the 31st of May, so that will make it better on the Monday, the 1st, I will do so. This is not about this is about making sure that when we do it, that we do it properly. So that is the first point. We haven't changed any plans on closing Lionwall Road.
Adding to the list of authorised users on Lionwall Road, Vijay Daryanani confirmed that consideration has been given to the elderly in the area, with family members or carers being allowed access, and said residents will start receiving their permits tomorrow. He revealed that the government is also considering automatic plate recognition.
Taxis, buses and other public service vehicles, deliveries, residents and businesses in the area who are only accessible through Lionwall Road will be allowed. Our elderly who live alone in the area have nothing to worry about. My ministry will issue them with the adequate permit so that their family members or carers can visit them as always. As from tomorrow, cars registered in the area will start receiving permits. Government is looking at other options for the future on how to permit cars from entering this zone. One is the automatic number plate recognition system, where registered cars will travel as normal and those not allowed to enter will be flagged up and then fined. This is only one example.
The Transport Minister said we must aspire to a cleaner Gibraltar. And on that note, Mr Daryanani announced there would be more buses in circulation and revealed more incentives to drive electric vehicles in Gibraltar. He also confirmed that there would be no road tax, but there may be a pollution tax, with the revenue from this going towards green traffic-related programmes.
We're also looking at how to increase the use of electric vehicles and make it advantageous if you own one. We will allow owners of these to continue using Lionwall Road as normal, irrespective of where they live in Gibraltar. The government is also considering the banning of delivery vehicles that run on fossil fuels on Main Street. It is simply unacceptable that the first thing people going to work or our children going to school should do is inhale these toxic fumes. We are also working with our public health officials to be able to commence our bus service, and an announcement will be made in the near future. We are also working on an increased bus service, which will include added services for our school children. The government will not be introducing a road tax. This is something of the past, and it had its failures. We are looking at a pollution charge. If we decide to introduce this, the revenue raised will not pay for general government projects. We are considering using these funds for specific traffic and transport-related green programmes. We want to give you a child-friendly city that you will be proud of.
In answer to GBC questions, Mr Daryanani also confirmed that parking fees at Midtown for local vehicles will be set at £1.80, which will be applied as from the 1st of June. Turning now to education, and Gilbert Likudi confirmed that as of today, there are only 2 active COVID cases in Gibraltar. The Minister for Education announced that 385 teachers had tested negative for COVID, with 1 result still pending, which meant, he said, that the risk of infection within education is very low. On that basis, Mr Likoudi said that Year 10 pupils will be going back to school on the 26th of May and confirmed that the Year 12s will also be returning before the summer break.
We currently do not have a single active confirmed case of staff engaged by the Department of Education. Of the 147 confirmed cases, only 8 have involved persons aged 19 or under. There is currently not a single active case in that category. These figures can, of course, change. However, based on that information, the current risk assessment and advice by the Director of Public Health is that the risk of infection in giving effect to the education roadmap is very low. The Director of Public Health therefore advises that the education roadmap can be implemented safely. After careful consideration, we have decided that Year 10 students will be returning to school on the 26th of May. Their return will be managed carefully, as indeed will the return of Years 2 and 6. We also feel that it is important to give all Year 12 students some contact with their teachers before the summer break. Year 12 will therefore return to school before the end of this term. The Department of Education is working hard with the Teachers' Union in order to finalise the plans for the return of Year 12 pupils. We will share details of these plans as soon as they are available, and that will be very soon indeed.
Gilbert Likoudi also stressed that parents who require access to the department's childcare supervision service as from the 26th of May must fill in the department's online form by next Thursday.
So as from Tuesday the 26th of May, any child who needs access to the childcare supervision facilities, the service which we have been providing all along, will be able to do so at their usual school. In other words, the school that they are enrolled in. It is important for all parents who will be requiring access to childcare supervision facilities to note that they must fill in the Department of Education's form by Thursday of the week before. This form, as we have said already, can be accessed via the Department of Education's website www.education.gov.gi. It is critical for the team at the Department of Education to have accurate numbers of children who will be accessing childcare facilities the following week so that we can ensure that the necessary social distancing and staffing measures can be put in place in a safe manner. If parents do not submit the form by the deadline, we will not be able to guarantee supervision for your child.
Moving on to other stories now, and Spanish Premier Pedro Sanchez says he will seek a fifth and last month-long extension to the COVID-19 state of emergency to allow the country to complete the transition out of lockdown. Addressing the nation, Mr Sanchez said he would call on Parliament to grant an extension of the emergency powers needed to prolong the lockdown. Mr Sanchez argued in defence of the lockdown, whose extension so far has been fought by opposition parties, including the PP and the far-right Vox. He called for unity and said that the de-escalation process could be finished in half of the country by the start of the summer, but that caution is a priority for the government. He said Spain needs tourism, but tourism needs safety and health guarantees. Mr Sanchez cited the first results from a programme of testing to determine the prevalence of coronavirus in the Spanish population, saying this showed three things: that the infection has affected different territories in very different ways, that only 5% of Spaniards have been infected, and that the death rate is 1%. Spain has recorded 87 deaths over the past 24 hours, the first drop below 100 since lockdown began. In other news today, and the cruise liners Jewel of the Seas and Sovereign will carry out technical calls at Gibraltar tomorrow morning. As is now the norm, the vessels do not have any passengers on board, and they will be berthing exclusively to take on bunkers, stores and discharge garbage. In this instance, crew members will disembark for transfer directly to the airport to board charter flights that have been pre-arranged by the ship's company. The ships will be berthed by 5 a.m. tomorrow morning and will leave immediately after the flights take off. And the Gibraltar National Museum is holding a virtual open day tomorrow, a slight change from previous years due to the COVID pandemic. Coinciding with International Museum Day, the theme is Museums for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. Coordinated by the International Council of Museums, it aims to both celebrate the diversity of perspectives that make up the communities and personnel of museums and champion tools for identifying and overcoming bias in what they display and the stories they tell.
The Gibraltar National Museum first celebrated National Museum Day in 2002. Since then, it's become a regular feature in the museum's calendar. This year, however, because of the COVID lockdown, it will take the form of intensified virtual museum activity. The government says that since the virtual museum started 8 weeks ago, there have been 130,000 visits to its Facebook posts. Of these, around 64% have engaged actively. Number 6 says this is a remarkable statistic, which reflects the growth of local interest in Gibraltar's rich natural and social history during lockdown. Followers have increased by nearly 4,000, 77% of which are believed to be from Gibraltar. Given its popularity, the virtual museum will continue even after the museum reopens, albeit at a reduced scale. Director Professor Clive Finlayson said his team has shown how much can be achieved in difficult circumstances and by working at a distance. Bookings can be made via inquiries@gibmuseum.gi or phoning 200 74289 during office hours for those who want to visit the museum as from the 18th of May.
Well, before we go, here's our top story once again. The partial closure of Lionwall Road will only take effect on Mondays, Saturdays and Sundays initially as from the 1st of June. This was revealed by the Minister for Transport during today's press conference. However, in answer to GBC questions, Vijay Daryanani denied the government had rowed back on plans originally announced, saying the partial closure was still going ahead, but only 3 days a week to allow for live consultation. For his part, the Minister for Education, Gilbert Likudi, announced that given the low risk of infection within education, Year 10 students will return to school on the 26th of May and Year 12s before the summer break. Well, that's all from the news team tonight. Don't forget, you can keep up to date with all our news stories online at gbc.gi and also on Radio Gibraltar. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.